Hi, Gary DeWaal here, and this is another Bridging the Week for July 15th through 19th, and today is July 22nd. Good morning in the United States, good afternoon in Europe and the Middle East, and good evening in Asia and Australia. Lots of relevant developments to report this week that occurred around the globe, the week after the CFTC issued its cross-border guidance. And remember, I include on my website relevant links to almost all matters I discuss in each week's episode of Bridging the Week. For starters, this past week IOSCO published its framework of principles for benchmarks used in financial markets, such as the controversial LIBOR and ISDA fixed indices. Although the principles make clear that it is best that a benchmark should be based on prices, indices, or values that have been formed by the competitive forces of supply and demand and anchored by observable transactions, it makes clear that benchmarks do not need to be based solely or even predominantly by actual transactions. Also this past week, the UK Financial Conduct Authority published a consultation paper in connection with a review of its client assets regime for the investment business. This is potentially relevant not only to UK customers and financial services firms, and also auditors and third-party providers, but to customers and investment firms all around the world. FCA's stated goal in seeking comments is to improve the speed of returning client assets following insolvencies of investment firms, not to mention achieving a greater return of client assets and decreasing the market impact of such insolvencies. A big proposed change for the UK is permitting insolvency practitioners to distribute client money based on a firm's records, not as agreed with clients. This should take months off distribution times. Responses to the FCA generally are due by October 11th, except for those pertaining to indirect client clearing, which are due by August 12th. Last week, Commissioner Omalia's dissent related to the CFTC guidance was finally and fully published. No new ground was covered in it, but Commissioner Omalia again argues that the proposed guidance fails to set forth its statutory basis, crosses the line between interpretive guidance and rulemaking, and does not sufficiently consider international law and comity. Among other things, he argues that the guidance does not make clear how the transaction level requirements satisfy the direct and significant standards that is the basis for the CFTC's authority, and raises concerns about the Commission's failure to follow the protocols of the Administrative Procedure Act. Potential litigants will be studying this roadmap carefully. Also, this past week, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, required Barclays Bank to show cause why it should not be fined $435 million and ordered it to pay back $34.9 million in profit and interest for allegedly manipulating California's electricity market through its trading from November 2006 through December 2008. Certain individual employees of Barclays are also facing penalties, in one case of up to $15 million for their role in the matter. According to media reports, Barclays will contest its FERC fine. According to other media reports, FERC is considering a similar action against JP Morgan regarding a related matter. FINRA this week announced an examination of high-frequency trading firms related to their development and use of trading algorithms and controls surrounding trading technology. A summary of the information requested by the trading examinations was posted on FINRA's website. The nature of the questions reminds proprietary trading groups of the importance of testing their algorithms before they go live and maintaining monitoring tools to immediately detect and shut down such systems when there are material problems. This questionnaire also reminds brokers granting sponsor access to ensure that their clients have adequately tested and monitored automated systems on an ongoing basis, in addition to complying with their own regulatory obligations under SEC Rule 15C3-5. FINRA also announced in its July 2013 Disciplinary Action Bulletin that it had fined 3 firms a total of $900,000 for failing to establish and maintain adequate anti-money laundering programs, and 1 firm $9 million for 35 significant email failures from 2007 through 2013, and for making misstatements to FINRA. Among the email failures included failure to keep and review Bloomberg email messages and failure to maintain access to certain emails during a transition to a different email system when 80 million email messages became corrupted. None of the firms involved in these matters are household names, but each action again points to the importance for firms continually to review and update their AML programs, specifically to ensure that red flags are being acted upon promptly, and to review and test their email systems to ensure that all types of electronic communications that firms think they are saving are in fact being saved and are achievable in the expected form. Check out a May 13 Valuable Lessons Learned feature on my website involving 5 ING entities for some tips on email reviews. Speaking of the securities world, on Friday, the Securities and Exchange Commission announced the filing of an administrative action against Stephen Cohen for his failure to supervise 2 persons during 2008 at the hedge funds bearing his initials, SAC, related to their alleged misuse of inside information. According to the SEC, Cohen did not act appropriately to prevent insider trading when he received highly suspicious information that, quote, should have caused any reasonable hedge fund manager in Cohen's position to take prompt action to determine whether employees under his supervision were engaged in unlawful conduct, end of quote. Without diminishing at all registrants' important obligation to maintain strong supervisory programs and proactively supervise when required, does the nature of this SEC failure to supervise action remind anyone else of another high-profile case where the relevant federal regulators seem to have wanted to find a principal's fingerprints on a big public problem but seemingly could not? How about the CFTC, John Corzine, and MF Global? You remember the on-again, off-again, on-again CME wash trade guidance that last week was resubmitted to the CFTC for its approval and hopeful implementation on September 9th? Well, now the CFTC is seeking public comment on this by August 14th. Gee, what's going to happen when something really controversial is proposed? Also, last week, the Senate conducted a hearing on the CFTC authorization. Nothing unexpected came out of this. There was testimony on how the CFTC's residual interest proposal would be bad for the industry and customers, and why a transaction tax would be bad for the market liquidity. Also, there was a discussion on why the bankruptcy code should be amended to provide more protection to customers in case of an FCM bankruptcy, and in particular, a suggestion to eliminate prorated distribution in case of swaps so some customers could get back 100% of their funds. What's cool about this hearing, though, is you can see a video of it online. I have included a link on my website. Finally, as the CFTC now begins to consider whether at least 6 jurisdictions have comparable and comprehensive swap rules like the USA, Deloitte has published a very helpful comparison of Title VII and EMIR regarding the 15 category of swaps regulation. Bottom line, the requirements are very comparable, applying an outcomes-based test. Let's see what the CFTC concludes. By the way, I've also included a link to this comparison on my website. Well, that's it for this week. Until next week, this is Gary DeWaal, and this is Bridging the Week.